Chapter 6, The Juvenile Tank. No one, least of all Taco, could believe I was going home. I found it hard to believe myself, especially after homicide detectives had searched my cage, confiscated letters, and made their threats of gassing me as they left. Since I had been acquitted in trial, I knew that the district attorney could not refile the charges for the murder and attempted murders. I was, however, worried about the DA notifying homicide that I had been acquitted and having them come down and book me for yet another murder. When I was let out of my cage for release, I went first to Taco's cell and held counsel with him. He was my road dog and now would be in charge. We talked softly through the bars. Yeah, homie, I began reaching through the bars to grab Taco's hand. I'm finna ski up and go get bent. Shoot up a gang of them snitch ass brims and get some pussy, you know? Yeah, that's right, cuz. Going out there and handle that shit. If you run into my homie Big Honcho, tell cuz to get at me. Righteous, I said, looking down to Taco's eyes. Damn, cuz, I kinda hate to leave you in this motherfucker, but I know you're gonna be firm and do what you gotta do. But cuz, watch that fool Mike, cause you know he ain't liking us no way, no how. That's right, Taco said in a preach-on tone. So you gotta keep what we built up going, you know? Yeah, but I don't think cuz gonna try to trip. But if he do, I'll give you a call and you can drop some of his homeboys out there, righteous? Besides, we all like one now since you and cuz got busy. So for him to try to start something now would only make cuz look real bad to the homies in the pen, you know? Yeah, you right, but just stay alert. Easing away from Taco's cell was like trying to push away from a 10-course meal after not having eaten in 5 days. We both knew he was not going home. He was charged with 59 counts of armed robbery and murder. Taco had heroically ridden into the Nickerson Garden housing projects on a mopped armed robbery in a .357 Magnum and gunned down a bounty hunter. Only moments before, the bounty hunter had shot Taco's girlfriend. Although Taco was a hero in the Crip community for his successful mission, he was but a thug to the district attorney who was, as usual, seeking a life term upon conviction. Taco took most of it in stride, but I knew, just as we all knew, that the threat of being in prison for life was a motherfucking. What we did in Juvenile Tank was reflected inside the prisons where we were headed. The rank system never ended. Just as it was on the streets, with continuous levels of recognition, so too it was in jail. Those in placement, foster homes, looked up to those in juvenile hall. Those in juvenile hall looked up to those in camp. Those in camp looked up to those in the youth authority. And those in the youth authority looked up to those in prison. Most of us in the juvenile tank looked up to those in prison because that's where the district attorney was trying to send us. We were all under tremendous stress. When I backed up off of Taco's gate, still looking into his eyes but also taking in the larger scenery of his cage, his bars, bed, sink, desk, and toilet, he seemed so content, so at home. And I wondered, had I looked like him just weeks, days, hours before? I didn't want to stay here all my life, but I had no way to stop the wheels of fate, already set in motion long before I had a ticket to ride. If I just stopped gangbanging, perhaps I could avoid prison and early death and a few other occupational hazards. But to just stop is to just say no to drugs, to tell a homeless person to just get a house. It just wasn't happening. Prison loomed in my future like wisdom teeth. If you live long enough, you got them. Prison was like a stepping stone to manhood, with everything depending on going and coming back. Going meant nothing if you never came back. The going was obligatory, but coming back was voluntary. Going didn't just mean prison. It circumscribed a host of obligatory deeds. Go shoot somebody, go take a car, go break into that house, go rob that store, go spray paint that wall, or go up to that school. It never was go and come back. Go was something that you had to do. To come back meant that you loved the hood and your homies, and that what you did was simply all in the day's work. Being locked up was an inevitable consequence of gangbanging. Your work brought you into contact with the police, and since jail was a part of the job description, you simply prepared ahead of time for the mind fuck of being a prisoner. The glory came not in going, but in coming back. To come back showed a willingness to stay down. It fostered an image of the set as legitimate. And each individual who could go and come back brought something new. Walk, talk, look, way of writing to add to the culture of the hood. In prison, one is thrown in with all the other criminals, gang members, outlaws, misfits, outcasts, and underworld people from all over California. Since every jail I had ever been in seems designed to be recidivistic as opposed to rehabilitative, the criminal culture is very strong. It saturates every level of every jail, from juvenile hall to death row. And so each individual going and coming back learns a new scheme to be used in the ever-growing arsenal of criminality. The hood also gains yet another expert in another field. I love you, cuz, I told Taco with a final salute of the C sign held high above my head. I love you too, homie, Taco responded, hitting himself hard over the heart with the C sign. I quickly moved to Levi's cell and rapped to him about standing firm in my absence. From his cell, I went to Ben's, Dirt's, and Chico's before shouting my respects down the Abel row. At that, I was on my way. It took most of the night for me to be processed out of the LA County Jail. Ever leery of the homicide detectives who might pop out from behind some partition or desk with those gasher black ass smirks smeared across their faces. As soon as I was finally released, I bolted like a track star to a waiting bus. Once on the bus, I darted straight to the back and crouched down in the seat. The police are notorious for letting you think you have gotten away, and then just when you think it's safe to go back in the water, sharks. So I moved under cover of darkness like I had just broken into or out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. On the bus traveling through downtown LA, I began to ease a bit, but not much. I knew if I got into South Central, the police's chances of apprehending me would be slim, sort of like Marines hunting for Viet Cong in their native habitat. A mere academy taught soldier policeman would be put to shame trying to track me in the concrete jungle of South Central. At Fifth Street, a passenger of youthful age boarded the bus. On point, I scoped his dress code: blue khaki pants, white All-Stars, blue Adidas sweat jacket over a blue t-shirt, and a blue baseball cap with two golf ball emblems fastened to the front. He definitely was a banger. The two golf balls could signify several sets. Back in the early 80s, we'd use numbers as codes of affiliation to circumvent police repression. All trays, including 3-time sets such as the Playboy Gangsters, Altadena Block Crips, and Marvin Gangsters, wore 3 golf ball emblems on their hats. In contrast, neighborhood sets and 2-time sets like 5 Deuces, 6 Deuces, and Raymond Avenue Crips wore 2 golf ball emblems on their hats. Often this alone will be a dead giveaway to set allegiance, and quite enough to get one's brains blown out. The banger paid for his fare and started right down the aisle toward the back, toward me. He caught me scoping him and tensed a bit, not out of fright, but as a result, I'm sure, out of an adrenaline rush in preparation for a confrontation. I had gotten my rush when I saw him board the bus. Before I saw any movement, a small caliber weapon appeared in his right hand, a .25 automatic, I thought. He wasn't holding it in a threatening manner or aiming it at all. He was palming it as if to say, "Yo, I'm armed. And if there is to be a confrontation, this is my choice of weapon." He sat across from me to the left, on the long 4-passenger seat. We eyed each other tentatively. All the while, he palmed the weapon. After a few minutes that seemed like days, he hit me up. "Where you from?" he asked in a serious, "you better not be my enemy" voice. For the first time in my life, I was scared of being shot, scared to die. Still reeling from the mental strain of being shot 6 times months before, I couldn't summon the courage to die. "I don't bang," I said, and looked away in shame, fighting to keep down the bile pushing its way up. The banger broke his stare and looked elsewhere, totally dismissing me. I felt at a complete loss. Damn, I was tripping. I couldn't very well say, "Excuse me, I made a slight error. You see, I'm from A-Tray." That would be even worse than not initially saying where I was from. I wanted to make it back to the hood and not in a body bag. I would gladly die in a couple of months, but not now, not here. We rode in silence the rest of the way. Then it dawned on me, the banger was probably unmoved by my disclaimer of affiliation and was going to ride the duration of the bus route to see where I got off. Then he'd know I was an A-tray and gun me down. Damn, I thought, while in the juvenile tank, I'd had termite, a Chicano from Eastside Clover, write ETG on the back of my neck. For sure, when I got off the bus, he scoped the set on my neck and unloaded his clip on me. Then I would die in shame. Just as these thoughts were racking my mind, he reached up and pulled the exit bell. As the bus slowed for his upcoming stop, he stood and pocketed the weapon and walked toward the back exit door. Pausing, he turned and said, "You should join the gang, cause you already got that look, stay up." And he stepped down into the street without a backward glance. I wanted to shout, "Motherfucker, I got a gang," but that would just fly in the face of what had already taken place. I rode on in silence, though I noted that he had gotten off the bus in an area of downtown where the only gangs were the El Salvadorians. This could mean one of two things. He belonged to one of the Salvadorian gangs, or he was just riding out the bus lines hunting for enemies. I quite possibly would have been one. What number? I wondered to myself. The bus was now occupied only by myself and two other people, both elderly women. It turned right on Santa Barbara, now King Boulevard, and I wondered where the driver was going. When we got to King and Crenshaw, the driver hollered that this was the last stop. What? Last stop? Never familiar with the bus lines in LA. I had apparently taken the wrong bus. Now I found myself on the corner of King and Crenshaw at 11:30 at night. This was the borderline between the Rolling 60s and Black P-Stone Bloods, and I had ETG on the back of my neck and a folder in my hand saying the same thing. Shit, tonight just wasn't my night. I milled around in the shadows, ever watchful, shifting nervously from foot to foot. Wasn't nobody on the street but police and fools. Police not giving a fuck and fools doomed by their own ignorance, Little D had said after my shooting. Now karma had reared its damn head and I was an ignorant fool, doomed. Every car was a potential tank manned by opposition troops. I had been dropped behind enemy lines and had to survive, had to get back to my country. The mission of going to jail only proved successful if I made it back alive. I was so far back in the shadows that I almost missed the bus going in the opposite direction. I was going to ride back down King Boulevard to Normandy Avenue, get a transfer, follow Normandy to Florence, and then take my chances on foot at getting home. Mom didn't even know I was out. I could picture the utter surprise in her face when the police called. Miss Scott, this is Detective Joseph from LA's Homicide Unit calling to regretfully inform you that your son Kody was murdered tonight. Mom would calmly say that the officer was making a dreadful mistake. My son Kody is in jail, she would say, probably right up until she had to ID my body in the morgue. She would never believe it could happen to me, but we had grown so far apart that if I were dying, I would not have called her. Mom was, to me, what anti-war protesters were to Westmoreland. I rode to Normandy without incident, but while I was standing on Normandy and King, which is Harlem Rolling 30s neighborhood, a packed beige Cadillac rolled to a stop in front of me. Looking hard for recognition were the twisted, contorted faces of bangers from I don't know where. I tried to look as unconnected as possible. The legal folder that held my letters and pictures from China, with the set scrawled blatantly across the front of it, was between me and the back of the bus stop bench. I was being inspected for any signs of being a banger. Perhaps these cats were Harlems just patrolling their hood, something I have done a lot. I found some very out-of-the-way people in the hood on some of my patrols. One particular night, I rode up on a carload of Miller gangster bloods, sitting comfortably in an alley behind the Western Surplus. I was able to ID them by their loud talking. I was on a 10-speed bike, and once I confirmed they were enemy, I rolled up on the side of the car and emptied my clip into the faces and bodies of the occupants. Out of bounds, trespassing, free fire zone. Hell, I had a dozen reasons to fire on them. Free country never crossed my mind. Besides, this wasn't America, it was South Central. The Miller gangsters were from clear across town, 120th Street. It's possible that they didn't know where they were, or it could be that they didn't know but had little respect for our hood. Or it could be that they did know and had little respect for our hood, since they had never had open confrontations with us. I tend to believe the latter. This is why it's necessary to read the writing on the walls. Fuck street signs. Walls will tell you where you are. Not seeing any clear signs in my face or dress code, the idling Cadillac began to ease forward. For identification purposes, the passenger raised one hand out of the window with his thumb and pinky finger extended, the other fingers hidden in his palm. I recognized the sign immediately. Neighborhood Rolling 20 Bloods. No doubt they were on a military incursion through Harlem Hood, their worst enemy. Hurry up, bus, I found myself whispering. Hurry up. The bus came and I rode attentively down Normandy, reading the writing on the walls, passing through several hoods. Normandy Avenue can be compared to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. It is the main artery of well over 40 sets, spanning from Hollywood to Gardena. Normandy is a vital supply route. From dope to dynamite, Normandy has seen it. From King Boulevard to Florence, the bus made its way through the Harlem 30s, Rolling 40s, 5 Deuce Hoovers, 5-6 Syndicate, and 6 Deuce Brims. Block after block, set after set. Everybody belonged to something. The writing scrawled on the walls told fabulous stories. I knew most of the names written by face, but it was hard to picture the individuals writing them. Bending down, moving, scanning to see who's watching them, some cats just seem too sophisticated for that. It's funny too, because as much graffiti as covers our city walls, hardly anybody ever sees it being done. As much as I have struck up on the walls, I've never been asked to stop or been asked what I was doing. On 71st Street, the street before Florence, I reached up and pulled the signal cord to be let off.